Sarah Thompson had always prided herself on being the perfect wife. For 10 years, she had built a life with Daniel, a beautiful home in Willow Creek, 2 children who were her entire world, and a marriage that appeared unshakable to outsiders. But appearances, as Sarah was about to discover, could be deceiving. It started with the little things. Daniel began working late more often. His phone always faced down on the counter. His passwords suddenly changed. At first, Sarah dismissed her suspicions as paranoia. After all, Daniel was a devoted husband, a loving father. He wouldn't betray her. Then came the lipstick. Sarah found it tucked inside the pocket of Daniel's blazer, a shade too bold, a brand she didn't wear. Her stomach twisted as she held it between her fingers. That night, she lay awake, staring at the ceiling, listening to Daniel's steady breathing beside her. She told herself there was an explanation. Maybe it belonged to a co-worker. Maybe it was innocent. But the seed of doubt had been planted. Over the next few weeks, Sarah's suspicions grew. Daniel's phone buzzed at odd hours, and he'd leave the room to answer. He started going to the gym at night, something he'd never done before. And then, one evening, he came home smelling of a perfume that wasn't hers. Sarah couldn't ignore it any longer. She waited until Daniel left for another one of his late-night workouts and followed him. Her hands trembled on the steering wheel as she trailed his car across town, her heart pounding louder with every mile. When he pulled into the parking lot of an apartment complex she'd never seen before, her breath caught in her throat. She watched as he knocked on a door, and it was opened by a woman with long dark hair and a smile that made Sarah's blood run cold. Sarah sat in her car, frozen, as the minutes ticked by. Then, driven by a mix of rage and desperation, she crept toward the apartment. Through the slightly open blinds, she saw them. Daniel and the woman, laughing, touching, tangled in each other's arms. The world around Sarah seemed to shatter. She stumbled back to her car, her vision blurred with tears. The drive home was a blur. When she walked through the front door, the house felt suffocatingly silent. She needed answers. That night, while Daniel slept, Sarah took his phone. His passcode was still the same, their anniversary. A bitter laugh escaped her lips as she unlocked it and scrolled through his messages. The name Jessica Monroe appeared over and over. Sarah's fingers shook as she read their conversations, flirty, intimate, filled with promises and plans. Jessica wasn't just some fling. She was someone Daniel had been seeing for months. The betrayal cut deeper than Sarah could have imagined. For days, she moved through life in a daze, her mind racing with thoughts of revenge. She couldn't confront Daniel, not yet. She needed to see Jessica for herself. A quick search on social media led her to Jessica's profile. She was beautiful, successful, a marketing executive with a dazzling smile and a life that seemed perfect. Sarah's rage burned hotter. Then an idea took hold. Sarah created a fake account and reached out to Jessica, posing as a potential client. They arranged to meet at a remote cabin on the outskirts of town, a place where no one would hear a scream. The day of the meeting, Sarah packed a small bag. Inside, a knife she'd taken from the kitchen. Jessica was already there when Sarah arrived, sipping coffee and scrolling through her phone. She looked up with a polite smile, one that faltered when she saw the expression on Sarah's face. "You're not a client," Jessica said slowly, her eyes narrowing. Sarah didn't answer. She stepped forward, her hand tightening around the knife in her pocket. Jessica's smile vanished. "Who are you?" Sarah's voice was eerily calm. "Daniel's wife." The color drained from Jessica's face. She stood abruptly, knocking over her chair. I didn't know he was married," she stammered, backing away. Sarah laughed, a hollow, broken sound. "Liar." What happened next was a blur. Shouting, pleading, a struggle, and then silence. Sarah stood over Jessica's lifeless body, her breath coming in ragged gasps. Blood pooled on the floor, staining the wooden planks. The knife slipped from her fingers, clattering to the ground. It was done. But as Sarah turned to leave, her phone buzzed. A message from Daniel. Her blood ran cold as she read the words on the screen. "I know what you did." Sarah's breath caught in her throat as she stared at the message glowing on her phone screen. "I know what you did." The words burned into her retinas. Her fingers trembled so violently she nearly dropped the device. How? How could Daniel possibly know? She'd been so careful. The cabin was isolated. There were no witnesses. Jessica's body still lay cooling on the floor behind her, the metallic scent of blood thick in the air. A sudden noise outside made Sarah jump. The creak of a branch, the crunch of gravel under tires. Her head snapped toward the window. Had someone followed her? Was Daniel here right now, watching her? She forced herself to think. The message didn't necessarily mean Daniel knew about Jessica. It could be about something else entirely. Sarah wiped her bloody hands on her jeans and typed back, "What are you talking about?" The 3 dots appeared immediately. Daniel was typing. The wait was agony. Then, "Don't play dumb. The security footage from the cabin. I saw everything." Sarah's stomach dropped. Security footage? There shouldn't have been any cameras. She'd specifically chosen this abandoned hunting cabin because it was off-grid, forgotten. Her phone buzzed again. "Come home, we need to talk." The clinical calm of the message terrified her more than any outburst could have. This wasn't the Daniel she knew. The Daniel who forgot their anniversary, who left his socks on the floor, who burned every meal he tried to cook. This was someone else entirely. The drive home passed in a blur. Sarah's mind raced through possibilities. Had Daniel been having her followed? Was this some sort of twisted test? The knife, still tucked in her purse, felt like it weighed 100 pounds. As she pulled into their driveway, the house looked deceptively normal. Warm light spilled from the windows. Daniel's car sat in its usual spot. Everything exactly as it should be, except nothing would ever be normal again. Daniel sat at the kitchen table, a tumbler of whiskey in front of him. His face was unreadable as he looked up at her. "You're covered in blood," he said calmly. Sarah glanced down at her clothes. She hadn't even noticed the dark stains. "It's not what you think," she began, the lie forming automatically. Daniel pushed a tablet across the table. The screen showed a frozen image from a security camera, Sarah standing over Jessica's body, the knife in her hand. "I think it's exactly what I think," he said. His voice was eerily steady. "The question is, what do we do now?" Sarah's mind reeled. "We? Since when was this a we situation?" Daniel should have been screaming, calling the police, anything but this cold calculation. Then it hit her. "You wanted this to happen," she whispered. A slow smile spread across Daniel's face. It was a smile Sarah had never seen before, predatory, triumphant. "I knew you were smart," he said. Jessica was becoming a problem, too clingy, too emotional. She was going to ruin everything. Sarah's knees nearly buckled. The realization crashed over her like ice water. Daniel had manipulated her into killing his mistress. He'd left clues, stoked her jealousy, even chosen the perfect location. Daniel stood and walked toward her. Sarah instinctively reached for the knife in her purse, but he caught her wrist. His grip was painfully tight. "Don't be stupid," he murmured. "We're in this together now. You killed her. I have the evidence. That makes us partners." Sarah stared into the eyes of the man she'd married, the father of her children, and saw a stranger, a monster. And worse, she'd just become a monster too. But Sarah Thompson wasn't about to play the victim in Daniel's sick game. If he thought she'd just roll over and accept this, he'd underestimated her. Badly, because Sarah had a secret of her own. Daniel's head snapped up at the noise. His grip on Sarah loosened just enough. "What did you do?" he demanded. Sarah smiled for the first time since finding that damned lipstick. "I called the police on my way home," she said. "Told them I'd just escaped an attempted murder, that my husband and his mistress tried to kill me at our cabin." Daniel's face went white. "You're lying." The sirens grew louder. Sarah leaned in close, her voice barely above a whisper. "Check the security footage again, darling. I think you'll find the angle doesn't actually show my face, just someone who looks like me." "Police! Open up!" Daniel's mask of control finally cracked. Sarah watched with grim satisfaction as panic set in. Because here was the truth Daniel didn't know. Jessica wasn't dead. The pounding on the door shook the walls. "Police! Open up now!" Daniel's hands gripped Sarah's arms hard enough to bruise. His breath came in ragged bursts against her face, whiskey and panic. "You lying bitch," he hissed. Sarah didn't flinch. The knife still weighed heavy in her purse, but she wouldn't need it now. The real weapon was the truth. Chaos erupted. Officers flooded the kitchen, guns drawn. Daniel released Sarah so abruptly she stumbled back against the refrigerator. "Thank God you're here!" Sarah gasped, summoning tears with practiced ease. She held up trembling, blood-stained hands. He made me watch while he killed her." Daniel's face twisted in disbelief. "She's lying!" The officers didn't hesitate. They wrestled Daniel to the ground, his protests drowned out by the crackle of police radios. Sarah watched as they dragged him away, his expensive loafers scraping across the tile they'd picked out together last summer. At the station, Sarah's performance was flawless. She recounted how Daniel had grown increasingly violent, how she'd discovered his affair, how he'd lured her to the cabin to silence them both. The detectives nodded sympathetically when she broke down, describing Jessica's last moments. Only one officer seemed skeptical, Detective Reyes, a sharp-eyed woman with silver streaks in her dark hair. "Funny thing," Reyes said, sliding a crime scene photo across the table. "No body at the cabin, just a lot of blood. And this." The photo showed the hunting knife, wiped clean of prints. Sarah's pulse jumped, but her voice stayed steady. "He must have moved her before calling you," Reyes smiled without warmth. "We found Jessica Monroe alive at Mercy General. Concussion, broken ribs, but very much breathing, and very eager to talk." The walls of the interrogation room seemed to shrink. Sarah's perfect story unraveled in an instant. Jessica had woken up in the cabin's storage closet, bound and gagged but alive. Sarah's murder had been staged. The blood? Animal remains from the freezer. The struggle? Theater. "You planned this from the moment you saw us together," Reyes said. "You wanted Daniel to take the fall for murder." Sarah's mask slipped, a flash of the cold calculation beneath. "Prove it." Reyes played the security footage again, this time the uncut version. It showed Sarah dragging a conscious Jessica into frame, arranging the scene like a macabre dollhouse. Then came the kicker, footage of Sarah planting Daniel's spare key at the cabin. "You missed one camera," Reyes said. "Game over, Mrs. Thompson." The cell door clanged shut behind Sarah with finality. Through the bars, she saw Daniel being released down the hall. Their eyes met, his blazing with fury, hers with something worse, amusement, because Sarah had one last card to play. The next morning, Detective Reyes received an anonymous package. Inside, photos of Daniel with 3 different women over the past year, and a handwritten note. The first knife was for Jessica, the others would have been for them. Epilogue. Daniel moved across the country, forever glancing over his shoulder. Jessica changed her name and vanished, and Sarah, she got 15 years for attempted murder, but sleeps just fine, because in the end, she'd won. Daniel would never trust another woman, never feel safe, and every time he jumped at a shadow, it would be Sarah's face he saw. What do you think? Was Sarah justified in her twisted revenge, or did she take things too far? Let us know in the comments below. We read every single one. Want more chilling tales of love, betrayal, and revenge? Hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications so you never miss our weekly deep dives into true crime's most shocking stories. And if you think this ending was wild, wait until you hear next week's story. The neighbor who watched too closely. Trust us, you won't see the twist coming. Until then, sleep with one eye open.